and welcome back to another episode of Grit and Grace Leadership Talks with myself, Kate Taylor. It is the season final episode, and I'm excited to share this special one because it's all things Are You Okay and mental health. I've got a special guest with me today as well, who's also an Are You Okay community ambassador like myself, Ming Johanson. She is known as the mother of unicorns and has been an Are You Okay ambassador with me for many years, and also runs a business and founder of a social media and tech company, and is the CEO of Marketing Jumpstart. So welcome, Ming, to the chat today. Thanks for coming on board.
G'day. How you doing?
Good. Thanks, Ming.
Thanks,
I know you've just joined us early in the morning from WA to be with us, but I'm very excited that
I'm definitely awake. I'm definitely awake.
That's a good start.
I didn't do a mad dash like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, well, I love that we can catch up. It's been a while, and I love that obviously we have connected through Are You Okay as ambassadors, and I really wanted to kind of bring you on board for us to have this kind of chat today, just for people who might be listening to the podcast who maybe don't know about Are You Okay or have kind of been thinking about it but not sure what it all means. And so I thought, what better person to get on board and do the talk with me today. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
And I'd love to know, obviously we all have our own healthcare and self-care rituals that we do to try and help our mental health. Is there anything that you do on an ideal day to start your day that you feel helps you and your mood?
I'm glad you specified ideal day, because it's like, how did you start your day? There's good and bad versions of that.
Yes, true.
On a good day, and this might sound a bit extreme, but on a good day, I will wake up at 4 a.m. I will go for a walk, and we do a morning walk through a beautiful park that's nearby. And we get back for about 5:30 for breakfast. We cook breakfast and we start to plan the day.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Is it dark at that time though?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Pitch black.
We
walk into darkness.
Nice.
We walk into darkness and then we come out into the light. That's not always the case depending on the time of the year. So I think there's a part of it because I do this walk with my partner, and we do that walk, I think, because there's no one around. So it's, it's that peacefulness and that silence, and not having to mask around people and not having to worry about what other people are thinking. It is really just for ourselves and our own mental health.
I love that. That's so good. And such a good way to start the day with exercise, get those endorphins going, and and it puts you in a good mood, even if you're tired, doesn't it? If you do something active. I've been trying to exercise in the mornings as well lately, but usually I do after school drop off, and then I'll go and do something. I'll go straight to the gym after, because the school drop off makes me get ready for the day. So it kind of get in my active wear and just go straight there. And after drop off at 8:30, and then I just get a good hour in and then come home, and then I can start my day. So kind of that helps me as well. Yeah. And trying to remember to take all my vitamins in the morning as well to boost my energy.
As I get older, the amount of things I have to remember to take and remember to do in the morning for my own well-being and health, and all the.
I know, it's like, what tablet do I take when? Should I take the vitamin with the tablet? Like, I'm like thinking I've got to separate it a bit. Like,
I got a vitamin D deficiency at the moment, so like I've got like 6 vitamin Ds in the morning that I have to take that I definitely am not remembering to take. So I still have a deficiency.
You should probably start doing your walks as the sun rises then to get the vitamin D. Maybe sleep in a little bit.
But then there's people.
Yeah, true. You don't have the place to yourself. Oh, it's hard, isn't it, getting that balance? So you got to do what works for you and what motivates you. What time do you go to bed if you have to be up at 4 a.m.? Because that always inspires me that people can get up that early, because I can't.
Usually 8 or 9.
It's really early. Yeah, because I'm a night owl. So I like staying up late to like 11, 12. So the whole idea of getting up at 4 just wouldn't work
So that's usually when my mental health is sliding. If my mental health is sliding, I'm up till 1 a.m. usually working because I'm trying to control whatever situation I'm in my mental health.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's when resourceful Ming comes out.
And that's what I think, like I was saying to someone the other day, like do the things that you know made you feel better. Like when you're feeling your best, what habits were you doing? What were you taking? Where were you going? What exercise were you doing? Because often that's a clue as to like what's starting to slide. If you see that you're going to bed later, you're not doing your walks, all the things, checking in with your psychologist, whatever that is, like you often see a decline and you're like, oh, that's why, because I stopped doing the things that made me feel good and kept me on track. You know what I mean?
It's usually the other way around, is that I'll usually notice the trend downwards and recognize that and know what that looks like and then go, okay. And for me, it's starting with small things, like things that smell. So nicely scented candles usually will help to ground me a bit more and make me a bit more present.
That calms you. Yeah, that's really good idea to have something like a scent to calm you and bring you back to center. And I've got a journal. I've bought a new chair in my room where I can sit and journal, but I still haven't been doing it very much. I was like, I'll buy this really nice chair and like
some people are not journaling people. Some people
I know. I want to be. I want to be.
I want to be a journaling person. I've made my own journal. Did it help? No, not at all.
So yeah, but I find when I've got a lot going on, or I'm trying to manifest something, or I've got a lot happening, then I'll journal, but not like consistently. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah. So it's just whatever works for you, I guess. But can you tell me about like your business and your career path? What made you get into social media and marketing, as well as supporting getting behind RUOK?
So like many people who used to work for Telstra, I rage quit Telstra for my sins. So I used to be a business manager in Telstra and telecommunications. I was one day asked to reapply for my job, and I'd earned my role. I'd worked really hard to get there. I was one of the most successful managers at the time, and I was asked to reapply for my job. This was with a partner group with Telstra, so not Telstra directly.
Okay.
Telstra, bad name. And they had already advertised my position without telling me, and I was getting phone calls to my store asking me about the position, and it was a pretty
HR
awful
nightmare.
It was a pretty awful experience, and I was, because I was quite young as well at that time, I was also quite ignorant of my rights, so I didn't really understand what my rights were in that situation or scenario. And so I quit, told them to stick it, take the job.
As
told
we
them do. Told them in no uncertain terms that I was never going to come and work for them ever again. And I ended up just starting my own gig, more out of not wanting to ever be put in that position ever again.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't want somebody else to be in control of my life and my cash flow and all of it. And that was 14 years ago. So I've been in business now for 14 years.
Wow. Long time.
It is a long time. It is really like it's a teenager. My whole business is a terrible teenager.
I do say my business is like a child as well.
Right. And so I was really just sort of a little bit lost as to what I was doing. Originally, we were a tech training company because that's what I thought I would do. And then discovered that most people just go back to the Telstra shop with their questions about their technology. And then at some obscure baby naming ceremony, I was introduced to somebody who was a wedding celebrant, And he was like, oh, you seem to know what you're doing with technology and social media. Can you teach a group of wedding celebrants how to use social media? And I was like, at that point, I was like, I'll say yes to anything. Sure, why not? Turns out that I'm actually quite good at training social media. And that was a room of like 50 wedding celebrants. And a lot of them are still like clients of mine. So 14 years on. So yeah, like, and that's how we got our start, was effectively the wedding celebrants were like, Ming, she's great. You should talk to Ming about the social medias or the internet. The internet. I know that because wedding celebrants are such an interesting key person in the wedding piece, because they're connected to all the photographers and everybody else, and the like florists and all of it. And now, 14 years on, we build websites, we do full scale marketing delivery, and help small businesses have the same sort of reach as large businesses on a much smaller budget.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome. And it's so needed. I've definitely learnt about the power of marketing and social media running my own business over the years. Yeah. And it's something where a lot of people get overwhelmed by. They don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They're just like, oh, it's all too hard, especially people that are in industries where they're not naturally dealing with technology. So, so they're not great marketers. And that's something that we don't necessarily get taught when we go out on our own. We know how to do our craft and what we're skilled in, but we don't actually know how to market ourselves. And so
quite often it's not the technology piece. Quite often it's actually not the technology that's the problem. Okay. It's usually we have to put ourselves out there. Marketing is really about putting ourselves out there. Okay. And putting ourselves out there for judgment, putting ourselves out there because, quite often we just want to tell people the thing that we do and they go, great, I needed that. It's perfect. It's perfect timing. It's exactly what I needed right in this moment. And that's not how marketing works. Marketing is often about relationship building.
Long game.
Yeah. And it's communication. It's long-term communication. And sales, which is the other piece that people forget in that whole communication piece, is really just customer service. Are you helping someone? Are you solving a problem for someone?
Yeah, so true. And so important. I think people don't kind of forget. We need a bit of everything. And if you're not naturally good at marketing or branding and you don't have the capacity to learn it or do it yourself, then it's good to outsource to someone like Ming, because she'll be able to help get your whole branding right, get the I actually enjoy marketing, and so I was actually quite good at it, but I went to a business conference course, and they kind of said, do you want to be just average, or do you want to be seen as like a key player in the market? Do you want to be like the Rolls Royce or the Ferrari in the marketplace that you work in? And I thought, and they said, you have to up your game, your marketing, everything has to be to the top notch. It has to be hitting the right mark.
Yeah. Consistency of messaging. Oh, you're frozen. Anyway, do I continue the conversation? I'm not sure, because Kate has frozen on the other end. I could talk all day about marketing, but I'm mindful that the video is frozen. It might have frozen on my end as well. Let me message her. Oh, cool. Yeah. All right. It's just me then. I get to talk. Okay. For people. So I just started talking to myself.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how
you're just going to see some random rambling. I mean, it's like, Kate's disappeared. I guess I'll talk to myself for a little while.
Tech issues. After talking about tech, I feel like we jinxed it because we were
good luck with the edit on that one.
But yeah, no, I think it's so important to get your branding right and to outsource it if you don't find it easy. Like if you don't have time or you don't find it easy, there are so many affordable options now to outsource it without it being a big burden. I used to have an in-house marketing person, or my admin would try and do it, but they just don't love it. Like if it's not your thing, the messaging that they would.
And if you like, I think that's often an indicator of a culture fit as well.
Yes.
Because you're trying to, like, when this is a big piece for me, and definitely something that you probably look out for in what you do, if they're not willing to integrate into understanding the brand, the business, the message, the purpose, and all of that goes with running a business, and be able to support in those communication pieces, they're probably not a fit for the business. They're not that jazzed to roll in every day, right? If they're not that jazzed to talk about your business, they're not going to be jazzed, doing your social media for you, because you're not that jazzed to do your social media for you.
Yeah, true. And some people just love it, the creative side of it. I actually quite enjoy learning how to do reels and different creating different content. But it's taken a while. And I also wanted it to be that I would post when I felt inspired or had something to share, not something I had to do consistently because that's what we're meant to do. So that's why I outsource the general marketing. And then if I feel inspired, I share when I feel it, or like when I get inspired. And then that's my authentic self and my messaging that comes through on all my posts.
So a lot of what we train in that space is a framework that's geared around values and true organizational values, as opposed to the bullshit ones that people stick on the wall to make themselves look good and feel better, like the actual genuine values of an organization. And that becomes the framework for content, because if you can speak to those values, you will also attract people who are your customers and attract people who are, your best clients and your best team.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good tip about getting your branding out around your values and your mission as a business. And let's talk all things Are You Okay? Coming up to a week. We're very excited.
Yeah, I'm mindful you're breaking up again. So, what? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk all things Are You Okay? And we have got the new theme for this year.
Yay! Man, have we been through a ride on this one.
I know. Are you okay any day? 2024. And we have got these cool cards that we have to take with us to talks.
I mean, we don't have to take them with us. It's just good when the just good when the technology fails.
That's true. It's a good backup, isn't it? And it's good for photos. I reckon I'm doing a few talks in person. So I'm going to take them because I think that'd be fun. Maybe just the first.
But you and I are pretty seasoned in our talks. It's not like
and we can pretty wing it
on board. It's for the young ones. haven't been around for a while.
Yeah, so we've been doing talks. Since 2017, we met at our training for Are You Okay?
I thought it was 2018.
Or maybe it was 2018. Okay. Yeah. Charlie reckoned it was 2017 when I asked her the other day. So I was like, okay, we'll go with that. But maybe it was 2018.
It's 2018.
I'm like, it's been so long, I can't remember the year that we joined. And it's been something that both of us have gone through our own personal journey with mental health. And that's why we are very passionate about doing these talks and kind of raising that awareness on around us in the world, but also on social platforms as well. So I guess for you, what is your main motivation and journey, I guess, that you feel comfortable to share around being an Are You Okay ambassador?
So the conversation for me actually started with Anastasia, who was the marketing manager at the time for Are You Okay?
Oh, yes.
I ended up in Melbourne through a series of random circumstances for a conference that was a social media conference. And Are You Okay was there talking about marketing and talking about social media and how it was all working. I ended up, again, it was a wild series of circumstances that led to me being at this conference. And then I ended up emceeing this conference. So, because the person who was emceeing ended up in a car accident, and they were like, "Hey, you look like you can hold a sentence together. Can you MC for us? You're a bit interesting."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Sure, why not?" In the spirit of saying yes to things, I'll do that. And then I'd only just recently come across Are You OK at the time, and I had lost a family member to suicide. And the conversation with Anastasia was basically along the lines of, if only they'd known. If only they'd known what I had gone through. If only they'd understood the struggle and the challenges and all of the things that I've overcome in my own suicidal ideation, in my own lived experience of mental health, in my own moment of contemplating ending my life. And if only I understood that and knew that I was a safe space to talk to. And so I really conceptually, without knowing the 4 steps, I actually understood the concept of Are You OK and how important it was.
Yeah.
And then you see the video of Gavin Larkin when you do the training, and it breaks you, because I don't know.
Yes.
You are at stone if that video does not break you every time you watch it. Who was the founder of Are You OK, who unfortunately lost his life to cancer, but he'd lost his father.
Yes.
And just, that, even just that line of, in the time it takes to have a cup of coffee, you can have a conversation that can change a life. And having been an ambassador, and you would have experienced this too, I have, at this point, hundreds of examples of that. I have hundreds of examples of people who've messaged me after the fact, who've sent me a message years later, who've bailed me up in the middle of a conference and gone, "Hey, you gave this talk about mental health and it completely changed my life."
Wow.
So I know how important that conversation is.
Yeah.
And, and I do it for myself, and I do it for the people that I've lost.
That's such a powerful message and story. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I totally agree that conversation can change a life. And if only we could have had those conversations, do you know what I mean? Sooner with certain people, would they still be here? And I guess my story as lived experience as well as a teenager who was suicidal and tried to take her life at 15. And it was actually a conversation that saved my life, reaching out to her best friend to say goodbye. And her mum twigged what I'd done and actually called my dad on the landline phone, the old landline phones with the big long cords. And she did the redial button. And if she had not, she luckily was a nurse. So if she had not twigged what was going on with her daughter's friend, I would have probably just never woken up from my sleep. And so that has been my mission, I guess, to show that a conversation was the reason I tried to take my life. A kid at school had told me I was worthless and should take my life that day. So that set me off because I'd already had a plan. And then it was the friend that's mum saved me that got me back the help I needed. Do you know what I mean? So it was one of those really tough things where at the time I was really angry at her mum because I didn't want to be alive. But now in hindsight, obviously, I'm very grateful that she took that chance.
I've actually often said to people, I'd rather somebody be mad at me than dead.
Yes, exactly.
I'd rather they be pissed at me. I'd much rather they be pissed at me than dead.
Yeah, exactly. Better to have an angry alive person than not have them alive. And I think that's the message of why, I guess, in my later years, about 7-8 years ago, I used to donate to Are You OK and support it through my business. But at first, mental health was not really talked about. And I was really nervous about being judged for sharing my journey because I was worried that people would think I'm not a capable businesswoman and that I can't do my business because I've had this journey.
That's such a thing. That's such a thing. I think the amount of people that come to me with that judgment or that expectation or that, aren't you worried? Aren't you worried that people aren't going to think you're a serious businesswoman? Aren't you worried that people are going to judge you? And I think recently I said something along the lines of, wouldn't it be interesting if we were all just pretending? Wouldn't it be an interesting experiment to have the concept that everybody's actually just pretending and literally everybody is winging it and nobody knows what they're doing? and it was interesting, like a good colleague of mine in the print industry, we were having this conversation and he was like, you cannot coach someone unless you've actually been in it and unless you've actually had those hard conversations. You cannot know where somebody is at when they're in that situation unless you've been there and you've gotten yourself out of it.
True.
You know, if you can teach from experience, that's far more powerful than, you know, teaching from a book. And there's like, throw a rock anywhere in Perth and you'll hit a coach. But, you know, like, it's...
I'm in Sydney these days. They're everywhere. There's a coach for everything.
You know, and certainly people engage me for coaching, but again, it's from that experience and from that understanding from, you know, you would have seen the recent video that came out with RUOK about financial distress.
Yes.
That one needed to be a lot of bravery because we don't talk about finances.
No.
We don't talk about how we're failing miserably at all of our finances. And we're pulling ourselves together every day and trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful. I watched that video and I could really resonate as being a small business owner myself and what I've been through in the recent years. And yeah, the cost of living's going up, all the expenses are going up. It's a lot of pressure on business owners and a lot of retail shops are shutting. A lot of other businesses are going like online, trying to, you know, steer away from having a fixed shop because it's too expensive. Like there's so many costs and
so anxiety
mortgages are increasing. Yeah, mortgages are going up. So we're all having to find, I had to downsize my office in January. And one of those reasons was financial because I've moved my office to home because I was like, I can't afford a mortgage and an office rent somewhere, you know, that's 50 grand a year. It's just not viable anymore. When only people want to come in 1 or 2 days a week. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'll just go to a serviced office when I need one. And $50 a day, you know, much more feasible. And so, so it is a hard one because, you do have to look at what's causing that stress and where's it coming from and keep going back to why you do it.
Sometimes those things are out of our control.
They are.
Like, what are we, 14 interest rate hikes in the last 2 years? Come on.
They're out of our control.
Like, anybody that says that they're doing great in this economy right now and that everything's easy street, no, we're all struggling. Everybody.
That's true. That's true. And even people who are in paid employment where their income's capped, but their interest rates keep going up, like that must be so stressful as well. Because in business, we have, you know, good months and bad months, but, you know, there are times we can make a lot. And so that kind of covers us. But for people that are on a fixed income and your costs are still going up, it must be so stressful. Knowing that even my husband, he's in a good corporate job in the city and he's like, I earn good income, yet I'm now worrying how we're going to pay our mortgage in October when our interest rates go from 2% to 6.5%, you know, like, and it's crazy. It's like he's earning a good income. This shouldn't be a stress, you know, and it's something that's very real. And I think it's really important to look at ways to look after yourself without it necessarily costing a whole lot. I know there's a lot of, if you can't afford, even gym memberships are cheap at the moment, but if you can't, then get outside and do the walks outside, go for runs, you know, look at other things you can do to look after your well-being.
So like one of the things that I've been doing more recently is reconnecting with community. You know, and some of that is just connecting with people online and having a calendar link and making it easy for people to catch up for a coffee.
That's true.
You know, so a lot of that is really just chatting to other people. Like I think when I was at my most stressed with finances, I called literally everyone I knew in my own industry. And I think what was comforting was everybody else was going through it. I wasn't on my own.
I found that too, actually. In recruitment, there's been a lot of companies and recruiters struggling, which brings comfort to know that you're not alone and that there's other people that you can chat to going through it. I think that's really important. We can't fix each other's problems, but we can at least support each other and bounce ideas and talk about different strategies that might be working for us, that could help them, that kind of thing. That network is pure gold during the highs and lows. And so many coaches have actually offered me free sessions and helped me because they see my situation and they're wanting to help. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out to your network and get that moral support as well. I think it's really important. And I guess for people who don't know, RUOK is the reason why I love it, and obviously Ming's probably got a different reason, but one of the reasons is that it's to help support those supporting people that are struggling. So it's not a lifeline, it's not a Beyond Blue who are targeting the person with mental health, but it's actually creating a platform and a way for people who are in the workplace, in families, at sports groups where you're seeing one of your teammates struggling. It's giving all of those people the tools to support the person struggling with mental health, because no matter how many services we have available, there's still not enough for the amount of mental health we have in Australia. And so I love the fact that we can empower and equip people in workplaces. Particularly, I do a lot of talks in workplaces around that stuff. And I guess when I share my story, a lot of people will say, that's really helpful because I've got a teenager at home that I'm worried about, or, how do I know if they might be thinking the way that you felt, And
I think it's worth pointing out as well, like the RUOK message has evolved over a few years. And that whole point about the conversation of are you okay any day is a space for a conversation about are you okay, is that the idea is that we have those conversations a lot sooner before they get to the sharp, pointy end.
Yes.
And before they get to like that, like if somebody could have a conversation before they get to that point of, the suicidal ideation or, the challenging thinking that we sometimes come across when we're going through it, when life happens. Right? For me, that was like my grief and my worst point in my own mental health was because I'd lost a partner in a motorcycle accident. I wasn't in my control. I had nothing I could do. Couldn't bring him back to life. Cloning's illegal. Like you time travel. So, I looked into it. I Googled. Know your options. And incidentally, I had a friend who was going through a very similar situation about 2 or 3 months after my partner had died. Her husband died. And we, and again, wild series of circumstances. And he just collapsed and died on a hockey court. And so we were both going through this incredible grief and really holding each other in that. And like even just the conversation of, I Googled time travel today. Oh, did you? Yeah, I Googled that one last week. And because we just didn't want to be there, and we didn't want to be in our grief, and we didn't want to, and it's all encompassing and just swallows you whole. So, for me, a conversation on the end of the phone with Lifeline saved my life because I didn't want to die. I actually didn't want to die. I often say that. I just wanted my situation to end.
Yeah.
And death seems like the only solution to that. At the time, I was pretty sleep deprived. So, look, it's not really thinking clearly, and I was overwhelmed and with so many emotions that I couldn't control and didn't feel like they were going to stop. I was screaming myself to sleep every day for a solid year.
Wow.
And that was not good. It was not a good space. So, are you okay? That's a pretty extreme circumstance, right? So are you okay? That really, if every single person on the planet engaged in a conversation more frequently, checked in on their mates, had conversations, talked about all the difficult, challenging things that we have, like we wouldn't end up spiraling into this space of despair. right?
Or if we do, we know we've got people that are there for us, you know?
Yeah.
We're not alone in it.
And you and I have been ambassadors for a while, so you know we've been there in the early days where that message was really about suicide prevention, but now it's like it's a mental health awareness campaign, right? So it's evolved a lot more into like the slip slop slap of mental health.
Yeah, exactly. It is actually. I never thought of it like that, but yeah, it is. Which would lead me to the 4 steps, because we've got this nice card. A lot of people don't know. They might know someone they're thinking of that's struggling, but they're not sure where to start. And they're like, how do I even have the conversation if they say they're not okay? And majority of people, even they are like nervous about that because they don't want to make it worse, I think is what most people say.
Quite often, and you probably have this too, quite often I'd show up to talks for Are You Okay? And people are like, they jokingly go, oh, are you okay? It's the name of the campaign. And I'm like, no, actually I'm having a really terrible day. And they're like, oh shit, and they wouldn't know what to do. And it's like, and that's the point. That's kind of the point of why I'm here, is that you are not equipped to handle a conversation when I say no.
Exactly. And so I guess the first question is to ask them in a meaningful way, are you okay? Is the first step.
And that doesn't have to look like the actual question, right? Like it doesn't actually have to look like, are you okay? Because that can be a confronting question sometimes.
Can be a bit cheesy as well.
I shared this with the latest intake of ambassadors. It's like sometimes I just send people random messages going, hey, I had a weird dream about you. You were a cowboy. I was riding a train. I don't know what's going on, but it prompted me to reach out and say hi.
Yeah.
Conversations I've actually had.
That's random, but okay. Even I'm always the one with the affirmations. So if I see a quote and someone pops in my head, I will send it to them. So, and I don't know what it means for them. I don't know why, but I just trust my gut. And if I think of them, I either send a message or I send a quote. And so often people come back to me and are like, oh my gosh, I needed that today, Kate. Thank you. And
I like the ones that come back and say, oh, I was just thinking about you. And I'm like, that's right. That's the brain Wi-Fi working.
Yeah, we're connecting. I love that. And then listening to them. I know we all want to problem solve when we hear our friends or family struggling. I think everyone wants to jump in and problem solve. And I say to them, stop, don't problem solve straight away. Just listen.
Without judgment.
Just listen. And listen without the need to answer straight away. Like just being a listening ear. Yeah, or fix it. Like sometimes we don't need to fix it. And
well, sometimes fixing it disables the other person in finding their own agency.
That's true. That's true. I hadn't thought of it like that. It definitely sometimes people need to process what they're feeling and why so that they can come to the solution to their problem. It's not always up to us to give them the suggestions. But then after you've listened and showed you care, then I want you to encourage action. So what would be the first step for you to help you feel better or deal with this situation? What's something you could do today for yourself?
Do you know somebody else? Do you know somebody else that's going through a similar circumstance or is on the other side of that you can ask for advice?
Yeah, that's a good one too. I like that. And sometimes, just being in a place where, maybe it is that they're going through a big life change, like the loss of a loved one, divorce, it could be, kids who are sick, even a mother with a kid with special needs. Like, it is a constant thing where they are constantly in fight or flight. And so it might be, okay, what support do you have around you? Do you need to go see a counselor? Do you need to go to your GP and get on a mental health plan and get some medication? Whatever that looks like, don't be afraid to take that next step.
I think some of it's for me is like, because I work with a lot of people who are neurospicy on these spectrums of all different thoughts and feelings and things. And sometimes it's just they need somebody to body double. I've got a friend of mine that this year we started just doing body doubling video calls so we could get all the work we didn't want to do out of the way. And now we like literally we leap at our body doubling sessions because we like hanging
body
out.
Doubling.
So body doubling is we're both present in the room, but we're working on our individual things. And because we know in the back of our head somebody else is there, I don't know if you've ever you've really struggled to do laundry or a chore that you really hate doing, and like your partner just sits in the room and somehow it just magically gets done, or your bestie just sits in the room and somehow it just magically gets done. It gets done because you're busy, distracted, having the conversation while you're doing the thing, and the thing just gets done, and then magically it's done and you don't think about it. So it's a thing that happens in the neurodiverse space, usually for people who have autism or ADHD.
That's clever. I like that idea. Because for me, I put on, if I have to concentrate, because I've been studying for the past year in HR, I actually found putting on, I've been loving the Bridgerton soundtrack. So it's no lyrics. It's just music. And if I put that on, it gets me in my zone to concentrate on
So I have a 10-hour audio loop of the sound of black holes. And there's something about the dark despair of black hole that gets me really focused.
Oh my God, that is so random.
I am strange. I mean, you don't just get me for my good looks.
Yeah. Whatever works for you. I mean, you got to try it, right? But sometimes it's just calming the mind and focusing, because I'm someone that's always trying to go 100 miles an hour, thinking about the next task, the next thing I've got to do.
You're a business owner. Of course you are.
Yeah, I'm always going 100 miles an hour.
That's how we work.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I really, if it's a legal document, if it's a document I need to really concentrate on, or I need to write, when I was doing my assignments for TAFE, I had to actually focus, and it was hard naturally to do that and not get distracted. So I'd have to put on music to get me in the zone. And then you can do instrumental pop songs as well, as another one I recommend. It's really nice in the background. My family give me crap about it every Sunday night for family dinner. I put it on in the background. And they're like, here we go. Google's instrumental pop songs. But it's just a nice mood. It just creates a nice vibe.
Instrumental Taylor Swift. That's where it's at.
I should try that. My daughter's having a Taylor Swift party coming up, so I better I better see if there is some playlist for her.
I feel like there would be. I feel like there would be. And then the last step, I guess, after you've encouraged action, we've got it off our chest, we've let them talk it through, and then we've encouraged them to do something about it. It may even be, hey, I just need a buddy to help me do some work I'm struggling to get done, or like you said, listening on that, being on the other, on Zoom, but doing your own work on one screen and having each other. Could be going to a service office for the day just to be connected to people to give you focus and time. Whatever that works for you, do that. And then the other step is to check in on that person. So a week or two later, just kind of put it in your diary if you're not one to remember, or if you think of them, just reach out depending on how big the problem is. If it's something they've really told you about, it's really personal going on in their life, it might need you to reach out the next day and say, hey, I'm really thinking of you today. Thanks for sharing. How did you go? How did you go?
How are you feeling?
How did you go with that check-in? How did you go with the doctor's appointment? How did you go?
Exactly. And I think actually that accountability and reminder means you've thought of them, and they're actually like, oh wow, you actually cared
you actually care. You actually care about me. This wasn't just a one. And I think that's part of the reason why that message for Are You Okay has evolved to it's a conversation we can have any day. Because Are You Okay got so focused on our campaign date, which is coming up in September, that a lot of the time people would just ask that question on that particular day and never again. And it would cause a trauma response for a lot of people, because they'd pick, especially people who have mental health challenge, would suddenly brace themselves waiting for people to ask the bloody question and not be prepared for when they say no.
Exactly. I think that's really powerful. And I think I love the theme this year that it's Are You Okay any day of the year, and they don't want it to be Are You Okay day anymore. They want it to just be Are You Okay any day. And I think that is, I guess, the message that's been coming through for a lot of years now, where people feel like, oh, why is it on one day? It should be all the time. It's
a National Day of Focus. And that was, look, I still think we needed that for impact.
Yes, I think so.
And it's okay for us to evolve outside of that. It's become more than what it originally started as, but it's still very much at the core, that message from Gavin Larkin.
Yeah, and I think that's so inspiring. His legacy lives on through all of us.
Yeah,
and the ambassadors keep growing every year. They have so many different requests coming in, and poor Charlie over at RUOK can't get enough people to speak. But yeah, I'm really proud that we get to do this work, and that we've lived to be able to, gone through the hard stuff, worked through it, got the help we've needed so that we can do these talks. Like, people don't realize, like, when actually still to this day, after 6 or 7 years doing RUOK, the hardest part of my talks is sharing my story. And I can tell all the facts, I can tell you the whole history of RUOK, I can do all of that, have the RUOK 4 steps, but having to get deep and vulnerable is a lot of inner work that we have to do, and a lot of self-care we have to do afterwards. And I don't think people realize how hard that is,
Every year I practice it. So every year I do a post on social media going, hey, I'm going to disappear for a week or two because this is happening. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not okay. Like the irony. Yeah. The irony is I'm not okay. But I'm working through it, and I've got support, and I've got community and all of that. Don't need anybody to worry about me. And a lot of that was really to try and prevent the thoughtless ask, which was people would go, oh, well, Ming's an ambassador, I'm just going to go and ask her, are you okay? And then they weren't, right? Like, and that's but everything about are you okay is about that conversation piece, is about just having a conversation genuinely, and connecting with people. And I think as ambassadors, we're sharing our story to complete strangers repeatedly throughout the year, right?
And especially that RUOK week, like I'm doing 4 this year, and it's going to be intense. And I always find I need some downtime after. So I'm actually going to book in a massage or something just to kind of give me an outlet of self-care afterwards this year. I try and do something nice for myself, just to kind of bit of self-love, self-care, because it is draining work for us to do these talks.
I think you talk about the hardest thing is sharing a story. For me, the hardest thing is actually when people come up to you afterwards and they're vulnerable, and they're in a point where it's a bit sharp and pointy, or they're overwhelmed by your honesty and your authenticity in that moment. And I think I find that the hardest, and it's not like only because I don't want to let them down.
You don't want to it's a burden that you then worry about.
I don't want to let them down in that moment. And so, like, it's great that it inspires them to reach out and feel safe in that conversation. But I quite often I spend a lot of time worrying about them after the fact.
Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? I always make sure that if anyone's open up to me, I try and refer them on to someone that knows them. So I feel like I can just let them go and be like, hey, I've done what I can, and now it's up to their team to look after them. But I remember my first ever RUOK talk, which I wasn't prepared for. I do this icebreaker, and I say to people, I want you to start off with, I want you to tell something to the person next to you that they don't know about you. It can be funny, it can be personal, it can be whatever you want. Just tell them something that they wouldn't know about you, that no one in the room would know. And a lot of them will tell different things, like good and bad things. And then I'll say, how did that feel, sharing that, And I go, that's actually being vulnerable. And that's what I'm going to be with you today. So I just want you to know that's not always easy to be vulnerable, but I'm going to be vulnerable here. So I need you to give me a bit of grace in this process. And the first thing, the person that organized it told me, she was a law firm. She goes, I'm on antidepressants and no one in the office knows about it. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is fully loaded. How do I be sensitive to this, like you said, but then I have to get the room back together to do the talk. And so
it's also been mindful that people, because it's lensed in an RUOK talk, that they might have been vulnerable for something that you weren't expecting, right?
So then I was like, oh, far out. So I just said to her, look, let's talk afterwards. I really thank you for being open and vulnerable with me. But let's talk through this a bit more after. But I think it's really brave of you to do that. But yeah, it was so hard because in the moment I'm like, what am I supposed to say?
Me. Usually gratitude. I usually start from a space of gratitude and say, hey, thank you for feeling safe in having that conversation with me.
Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful if you can say it in that way, because then people feel validated in how they're feeling instead of being like dismissed or not looked after. And sometimes that act of kindness and just empathy can be enough to keep them going through whatever they're doing. And so, it's really powerful. Well, look, I'm really grateful for your time. I've loved our chat today. And I'd love to end with a famous Grit and Grace quote that you love about life and leadership or well-being. Is there any quotes that you come to mind?
I can sometimes be a little bit boneheaded in life. So the quote I picked is an anonymous one. It's been attributed to lots of different people, but ultimately it's because nobody knows who said it first. But grit is the stubborn refusal to quit.
Oh, I love that. Grit is the sudden refusal to quit. I love that. And I hope that this talk today has inspired some of you guys about having those chats with those around you who might be struggling, checking in on your friends and family throughout the year, not just on RUOK Day, but please, it's a day of action, so get behind it. If you and your teams are hearing this, we'd love you to get behind it. And I would, just appreciate if you like this podcast, say please like, love, share it with your colleagues. And Ming, if people would love to work with you in the marketing side of the business to get behind your brand and what you're doing to support you, how can they do that?
Honestly, the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. I'm the only Ming Johanson in the world, so it makes it really easy to Google me.
Oh, that's easy.
Saves a lot. So you can find me on the LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll have a conversation.
Awesome.
Make some
I love
changes.
that. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ming, and I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Tom.
Me to dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance.
Thank you for joining us for the chat today with a few little tech issues in there, but appreciate you all if you've listened to the end. I hope this empowers you to have those chats with those around you who might be struggling. And if you are struggling yourself, please, we will put in the show notes the number for Lifeline. Reach out to a friend or family member that can love on you at this time. Thank you. And please like and love this video and podcast. And we would love to get the word out to more people. Have a great day. Bye.